Our guest today is one of the best talent in all of North America. She has come here to chew bubblegum and do an interview. The bubblegum princess, Alexia Nicole. Alexia, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you?
I'm great after that. Definitely didn't think I was the best in North America, but
Oh, your work
that's
speaks for itself, and I can't wait for.
100%. I mentioned to a buddy of mine last night that you're coming on the show tonight, and even he got excited. He was lucky enough to have you on his podcast a couple years ago, and he told me that he's like, you are so lucky to have her on. And I've been a fan of yours for a few years now, especially since I was very lucky enough to see you perform at the Summit.
Oh, okay.
Which was my favorite indie show of that year. And since that day, that I had known of you before, but that day had turned me on to into an Alexia Nicole fan that day right there. And I have a lot of friends, right? A lot of listeners of this show are very jealous that we're getting to talk to you today.
Cool. No, I didn't know it was such a commodity.
Yeah, we're putting you over pretty big. I'm not gonna lie. Just while we're on the train of putting you over, we have the chance to interview Nikita Koloff, which is coming up in a few weeks, and your announcement has gotten just as much hype as our interview with Nikita. So you're doing something right.
Apparently.
So I want to start off, and I want to throw a real heavy-hitting question right off the get-go to you, and I need to know, what is the brand of choice for bubblegum for the bubblegum princess?
It is Hubba Bubba. I find that's the best. I never realized how much science went into it, but it's got the best consistency. Especially like for outdoor shows or shows that like it's really humid inside the venue. Some gum just like falls apart in your mouth, which is kind of gross to say, but like it just doesn't stick together really well. So yeah, that's probably the brand.
See, you always hear about the ring psychology and that aspect of the business, but we're getting the breakdown of the bubblegum psychology right now. That's a Count It Out exclusive right there. And you know what? I'm waiting for it. I'm going to put it out here in my little fantasy booking land here. That bubblegum gimmick that you have, I love it. I think it's fantastic. I think it works great as a heel or as a face. And it could set up a great, maybe a hair versus hair match angle down the line if you want to put some bubblegum in somebody's hair and get them all fired up, you know.
I mean, I'm so nervous to actually suggest to anyone to put gum in their hair because, I mean, you can get it out with coconut oil, peanut butter, but I know how protective, especially girls, are of their hair. Like, I know I am.
Yeah.
But it is something I would like to do down the line, so we'll see.
Insta heat.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
exactly.
100%. All right, let's go back a little bit because your story fascinates me because let's be honest, you're not very old and you've been in this business already for quite some time. So when you started training, you must have been only about 15 years old?
Yeah, I was 15 when I started training.
Wow.
So what is it? I know me personally, when I was 15, I was building a wrestling ring in my backyard, but never once did it ever occur to me that I could go to a wrestling school at that age. What pushed you to be able to do that?
I think I was 13 years old when I said, like, oh, I want to be a wrestler. Like, this is something I want to do. And I was determined. I'm like, because I didn't do any other sports. I think I did karate at the time, and like piano lessons, but nothing like, I guess, competitive, really. Like a lot of my friends played soccer, hockey, that kind of stuff. I didn't have a sport per se. So I'm looking like, okay, there's got to be a way to do wrestling. And I found, I looked online and there was actually a training school like 20 minutes from my house. So I was literally every day bugging my parents up until they finally were like, okay, we'll go see it.
Is that when you met up with Rob Fuego, or did that come later on?
So I met him. I think I met him a little bit before I started training. I'd gone to see the place. Like, obviously he said it too, you know, you're very young.
Yeah.
But there was also a all girls training program starting in a couple months. So he's like, okay, well, you can try this and then we'll see how it goes. And my parents were fine with that because it was 1 day a week. It was all girls. It was a very small class. They felt a little bit better about it. And even they were like, okay, well, if you're good at this, you can keep doing it.
So even now, you're billed at in your adult years, you're billed at 4'11".
It's 4'10" actually. Someone added an inch for me.
fantastic. So what are you walking into at the age of 15 years old? Were you shorter, or have you just kind of peaked at that point?
I mean, I was definitely the shortest. I think I've always been the shortest. But I trained with a few other girls. They were close to my height. Taylor Wilde was my trainer.
Right.
She's rather short too. She's like 5'2", 5'3". I trained with Aaliyah as well. We started on the same day. She's only a couple inches taller than me. Yeah, so I got kind of lucky when I started training that girls were close to my height. And then when I mixed in with the main class, yeah, I was definitely the test dummy. I was the smallest one with guys that are like 5'10" to like 6'4".
Yeah.
You mentioned a name there, Aaliyah, and I know you guys formed a team early on, Team Barely Legal, I believe.
Yes.
What are some of your memories about working with her, and how happy are you to see the success that she's currently having right now?
Oh man, it's so good to see her like not only sign to a major company, but doing something in a major company. It makes me really happy to know because I've seen how hard she worked. I know where she started, how much she's improved, and like we wrestled each other so many times that we didn't even have to like talk over anything. Sometimes it was just okay, like, well, we can do this, this, and this, and then we'll just figure it out the rest when we're out there. We knew each other well enough, like we traveled together, and we just spent so much time together that working with her was probably some of the most fun I had in my early career.
Nice. And speaking of your early career, I know you mentioned Rob Fargo and you mentioned Taylor Wilde. Now, who are some other people that kind of helped you out along the way in the early days and kind of gave you some advice?
Honestly, anyone that trained at Squared Circle Training, the time that I was there, I was really lucky that Squared, that everyone was really helpful. Guys like Shane Saber, Anthony Fiasco, Preston Miles, who else is there? Marcus Marquez. Ashley Six was there for a little bit. He helped out. There were days where like RJ City would come in and kind of teach us something cool. Josh Alexander came in once and like kind of taught us a few things. Psycho Mike came in and like sort of taught us a few things. I was really lucky to have a training school that so many people had gone through and that was so like central in Ontario to most people that they would come by and sort of help out and show students different things that maybe Fuego wasn't teaching us.
100%. I mean, everybody that I personally know that's come out of that school has succeeded in some way or another. I mean, even if it's not in the ring, in the business in some sort. It is probably the most talked about wrestling school in Canada since the Hart School, anyways. Is it cool for you now to, when you're working the circuit, you're still working with a lot of the people that you just mentioned, a lot of people that you trained with, a lot of people that you saw, people who helped train you. Is it cool to connect with them on the shows when you go and, when you're on a show and you see RJ City, when you see Josh Alexander and they're still working the same circuits?
Yeah.
Is it kind of a reunion or?
It's fun. Like it's cool to like think back now because I've never actually thought back about like how I met them and like how young I was and how new I was. And how they like actually they didn't just kind of push me aside or like, okay, you're just a trainee. Like they were really nice and helpful. And like Josh is I call him like wrestling dad. Like he's someone a lot of us can actually like go to, ask for advice, ask for feedback, ask to like help teach us something. Like he's super helpful for like my generation of wrestlers. And like getting to work on the same shows with them, pick their brains, ask for feedback immediately. It's really helpful.
Now, that sounds like something that's kind of stuck with you. And now someone with as many years of experience as you have and been in the ring with some of the top names in the business, is that kind of a role that you're finding people are coming to you now and looking for that type of advice?
Kinda. Like a couple of, I guess not even more than a couple. A few girls will come to me, ask for advice. And I remember when it started, it was so weird because I'm still younger than most people. Because I started so young, I'm still younger than most of the girls that come ask me advice. So it's always kind of strange for me to be giving it. But I have found that like girls will come ask me things, ask for help, ask for feedback. It's kind of flattering. But it's also like, well, am I even at the level to be giving that advice? Like, I don't even know if I'm good enough to be helping out people yet.
I want to kind of go back a little bit while we're talking about the early days of your career as well. Do you have any memories of your first match, just kind of the feelings going into it, nervousness, excitement, who you wrestled, and just overall memories of your first time getting in the ring?
Oh my God, I was horrified. My first match was there used to be this big wrestling event every Canada Day called Tiger Fest.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And there was thousands of people. There was thousands of people, and there were big names on the show. Like I remember my first show, I talked to Rhino for like half an hour. And just sitting in the locker room, and it was just the strangest thing to me. I wrestled Angelina Love on that show in a tag match. I was so nervous. I was so new, but she, like, again, was so helpful. And Rob, she trained at Squared, so she knew Rob, and Rob told her, like, hey, it's her first match, like, just help her out. And I couldn't have asked for a better first match. She was so helpful, great at guiding me, and like really helped me learn a couple things that I wouldn't have learned had I in training. It was things you had to learn in front of a crowd.
Nice. And how far along now did it until you kind of developed this whole bubblegum princess character? Because I think it's fantastic. I think it works great as a heel or a face. How did that come to be? And do you have a preference of working as a heel or a face with the gimmick?
It came, I couldn't tell you how long it's been, but it came about. I was at a Smash show, and I used to chew gum when I got nervous because I grind my teeth a lot. I was just chewing bubble gum because that's all I had, and I used it in a promo, and everyone was like, oh, that was great, you should do this all the time. I was like, oh, okay. So that's honestly how it happened. I just kind of went from there. I definitely prefer heel, though, especially I've kind of changed the bubblegum princess into less less Disney princessy. It's a little more serious, so heel works better for that, but face is fun. Heel is just a lot easier for me, though.
Now, I have mentioned this several times, not only on this show, but on my previous podcast. I do believe, I truly believe that nobody has a better women's wrestling division than the Ontario indie scene. You want to see the best wrestling, some of the best wrestling, of course, but the best women's wrestling, you got to go to Ontario. You got to run that Ontario circuit. And I truly believe, I'm not kissing your ass here, I truly believe you're one of the reasons for that. But you have been in the ring with some of the best of the best of the best. People like Jody Threat, Casey Spinelli, Cherry Bomb. Do you have any, not to pick and choose, but do you have a couple favorite people that you love to be in the ring with?
Like Canadian specifically, or just
not Canadian specifically, but people who are known and run on the Ontario Indies a lot. Like Allison Kay is not Canadian, but damn well we know her here in Ontario.
Yeah, she's definitely one of my favorites. She's a lot of fun to work with. She also, I find that like, not most people, but like a lot of people, especially when you're around them a lot, you get into this kind of rhythm of, okay, like this is kind of the structure of the match. We'll do this, this, and this. And because I hadn't, she's not from around here, she has a sort of a bit of a different style. You'll notice that like every area has its own style. In the weird way that it is, even though it's all wrestling, everyone's got their own way of putting together matches. And because she's not from around here, she thinks a little bit differently.
Right.
So working with her was always a lot of fun. Jody Threat is also someone who's a lot of fun to work with because I actually had one of her first matches.
Oh.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to work with her one of the first times she had worked outside of Superkick where she trained.
Right.
And she, she's improved so quickly and doing so well. So she's a lot of fun to work with too, because we're friends in real life. Like we get along, we talk about stuff, and working with friends is always the best. Like you always have great chemistry.
Do you still, is there anybody that intimidates you in any other way? Like when you get in the ring, for example, when you're at the Summit, you're in the same building as somebody like Lufisto. What does that do to you as somebody, she's been around forever and ever and is one of the biggest names in indie wrestling? How do you feel when you're in a locker room with somebody like that?
For the first time I met her, I was very intimidated, but I've been on so many shows with her at this point that it's nice to see her. But I'm the type of person that gets intimidated when there's a name around. Like the first time I worked with Jazz, I was so nervous. I was like so scared. I didn't want to say the wrong thing. I didn't want to push too hard, but again, it ended up going really well. Actually, that week, that SummerSlam week in Toronto, I had passed by Walter in the locker room, and I stopped and stared. I didn't say a word. I just stopped and stared quickly and walked the other way. I was so blown away and so starstruck.
Somebody else that you had the chance to do a little bit of work with, if I'm not mistaken, was Trish Stratus. Did you do some training with her, and what are some of the memories and advice that she gave you?
Yeah, we trained for, I believe, that SummerSlam, and I think Evolution. Is it Evolution? What was the women's pay-per-view called?
Evolution.
Yeah.
Is it Evolution? Okay, yeah. We trained for Evolution together, and we trained for SummerSlam. I mean, again, starstruck. It's meeting Trish Stratus. The best advice she gave was honestly just be true to yourself. Like, don't let someone kind of push you around and tell you who to be.
Oh, that's cool. How did that come to be? How did you get paired up with Trish there?
That's all for Fuego. He's pretty much the guy in terms of older wrestlers to go to for training. And even though he doesn't have the school anymore, they all know him. They don't know any of the newer trainers other than maybe Tyson Dukes or Rip Impact.
Right.
So I guess they're friends from a while back. I know Ron Hutchinson actually trained both Trish and Rob, so that's probably how they know each other. And yeah, he's like, hey, I'm doing this training with Trish. You coming? And that was it.
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
Another name that you've gotten to do a lot of work with is Tessa Blanchard. And I kind of want to roll into a little bit of your time with Impact Wrestling. But before that, how fun was it getting to do the Rough Rider stuff with Tessa and kind of doing that little spin on the Four Horsemen?
That was a lot of fun. I wasn't even supposed to be in that. It was originally supposed to be Kira, but she had gotten hurt. So they kind of I was there for that set of tapings the whole weekend. So they just tossed me in there. And that was, honestly, that's some of the most fun I've ever had in a ring. It was just, I mean, it's not stuff that I usually do at all, but it's fun to play that Four Horsemen character, to do those kinds of things, to have that attitude. And Tessa, like, I know people say things about her. I've only had good interactions with her. That's all I can say. Like, she's always been super sweet to me.
Well, and she's kind of a little bit of a trailblazer here. I know that you partake in a lot of intergender wrestling, and Tessa's setting that standard to a whole new level. She was the Impact Wrestling World Heavyweight Champion. How inspirational is that for seeing Tessa win a world championship, the men's world championship? And just kind of want to talk a little bit about intergender wrestling in general, because, I think it was a little bit taboo to start, but it's really been accepted now. And I think that you've been a big part of that in this scene. Can you talk a little bit about that as well?
Yeah, it was cool to see her win it. It was definitely like, when she won it, I was also skeptical. Like, oh no, what happens now? Like, is she now like above the Knockouts title, or like, can she go back down? Should she ever lose to anyone again? Was like my thinking. But it was also such a cool moment because she could hang with the guys. It wasn't even like a thing of, oh, she's a woman, she's not big enough. She was just as good as them. So, you know what? Yeah, she deserved it. She really, like, that was her role. And personally, I love intergender wrestling. And I know people hate it, and I get why they hate it. But I find it so much fun. It brings in new dynamics that you don't get in a regular women's match or a regular guy's match.
And a little bit more of a serious note, I know that you've dealt with a series of shoulder injuries throughout your career, especially in the earlier days. How's the shoulder holding up today? And is it doing, like, how's the shoulder in general going for you?
It's okay. Like, I've had them for issues forever, so I know it's not going to go away anytime soon. I do have a slight tear in my rotator cuff, but like, I'm thankful enough that right now, because nothing is going on, and like, I'm in school and it's all online, and I don't really work that often because everything's closed, that I can sort of get it fixed and like to do whatever I need to do to get that fixed. So that way, once everything does come back, I hopefully won't have those issues anymore.
No, that's good. That's good. And that's the one thing that you can take away from this terrible pandemic that we're going through, is it's giving your body a chance to heal, because you've been probably, how long have you said you've been doing this for now?
Since I started training, it's been about 10 years.
Yeah, so you're 10 years nonstop, bumps and bruises. It must be a nice chance to kind of just let the body heal up a little bit, right?
You know what? At first, my body hurt. It was hurting more. I think I was starting to like lose my calluses from bumping. Like, my back was in pain. I was just like, I felt really sore every day, and I'm working out like as much as I can, even though I don't have like what I'm used to at the gym. The only thing I wasn't really doing was bumping. I'm like, oh well, that kind of hurts to not bump right now, but that's past. That's my body's feeling good again.
Well, I want to kind of talk about during this time in the pandemic. You were a part of a great project, and I know we talked about the Rough Riders, but you were a part of the Backyard Pro series as Detective Cookie Dough. Again, another chance for you to show off another side of your personality. How much fun were those tapings? Because when you watch it on YouTube, you can see the joy that you guys are all having, and just the fun coming right through the screen.
Yeah, those were tons of fun. And like the best part about Backyard Pro is we're all like friends. So we were just having fun with each other. No one was stressed out. Well, I mean, people were stressed out, but no one was like super stressed out. Like it was all a good time. The most stressful part was like, are people gonna like this? Because there were people that thought Backyard Pro, like we were just really backyard untrained wrestlers. They didn't realize that we're parroting what backyard wrestlers are. But it was, that was honestly probably the most fun I had all year. I guess, especially in terms of wrestling, because there wasn't a ton of wrestling.
Absolutely, and I could tell you guys were having fun because I know I don't know how much he had to do with it actually putting it together, but I know I know Brendan Caulfield had a lot to do with putting this whole thing together, and he couldn't shut up about it. Like it seemed like he seemed like a kid promoting this show. Passion just burning in his eyes every time he talked about this show. And then when it all came together and you saw you guys doing it, it made sense why he was so passionate to do it, because you guys had so much fun. It made the watchers want to be there.
Yeah, like that Backyard Pro is Von Vertigo's baby. It was his original idea. Him and Gabriel Flares that kind of came up with it. They were they wanted to do like a comedy, like almost like a little tiny video, and that just turned into this idea of Backyard Pro. But he gave us all so much freedom with characters, with what we wanted to do. He's like, this is the filming day. This is what you do. Like, this is kind of the general. This is who's over. Do whatever else you want. So that creative freedom was really fun to work with. Like, we all came up with our own characters. And, like, Brandon especially, like, he got to have a casket match. Like, where else are you going to have a casket match?
Right.
And you got to pay homage to little Carmen Sandiego with your trench coat there.
Yes, that's my mom's trench coat, actually. She didn't know I took it until she watched it.
You're going to get heat now.
I got my own. We're good.
Getting back to a little bit more seriousness here. You got to spend some time with Impact Wrestling. I thought they showcased you pretty nicely. What are your memories about working with Impact, and what's your current relationship like with Impact?
Currently, not a ton of conversation, just because, like again, pandemic. Like we were talking beforehand, but then everything hit, and I don't live in, like, I'm not American. I don't have a visa, so I can't cross the border to go work their shows, which are all taped in the States.
Mm-hmm.
It was fun. Like I definitely learned a lot. I learned a lot about wrestling on TV. I learned a lot about how a taping works. I learned a lot about backstage segments. I learned a lot about things that you don't learn about on your typical indie show, because you don't have to worry about things like, I mean, you have to worry about like where the hard cam is, and how many camera guys there are, if you hit your marks with your music and all that. But it's not to the same production level, especially on like most smaller shows. And like, especially like, how can I put this best? You want to make sure you only have a certain amount of time to get everything in, and it's not a lot of time.
Yeah.
No.
On indie shows, you're a little more flexible with what you can do, but you've got like, maybe you say you have an 8-minute match, but there's a commercial break in it. You really have like maybe 2 minutes on the first half, and like maybe 4 on the back half, because you have to fit in entrances, post-match shenanigans, all that. So you learn a lot about making sure you do the things you do really well in the time that you have.
Have you had any conversations at all with the WWE, or done any work with them in the past?
I've done some extra work. I was a Rosebud a couple times.
Nice.
I've had a tryout. How old was I? I was 20, 21. Never got back to me about it. They never gave me any feedback, but I wasn't prepared at the time for the tryout. Like, I thought I was, but I definitely, if I had, like, looking back, I wouldn't have gone. Knowing what I know now, I would have waited till I was further along in my career, like right now.
And taking a look now, if you take a wide look at the women's division in every company, I think it's booming everywhere. AEW, Impact Wrestling, WWE, NXT. I think the women are out there stealing the show almost every night. Are there some names that you see out there that you just want to get in the ring with, that maybe you haven't had a chance to get in the ring with?
Oh yeah, like Io Shirai is like the top name.
Nice.
That I definitely want to get in the ring with and work with. I've never actually had a one-on-one with Tessa, so that would be nice. I've wrestled. I know she's still injured, but I wrestled Chris Statlander once, and that was a ton of fun, and I would love to do that again. Who else is there? I've wrestled Sue Young before. That was really good.
Cool.
I'd love to work with Deanna. She's someone I really want to get in the ring
right.
with.
Yeah.
I mean, Sasha Banks too. Great.
That would be a great match. I'm telling you that right now. that was hoping you were going to say Sasha. You and Sasha, that's money to me. Now, I don't know if this is an inside joke or what, but I made a promise to somebody, so I have to fulfill it. Before I was with Counted Out, I ran a podcast on a network called WrestleMedia. And on WrestleMedia, there was a show called Women Crush Wrestling, where you were actually a guest once. And the host of that show, Adam Contant, was on the show last week. We had 2 guests last week. We had Cody Deaner and Adam Contant. It was a great show. For those who haven't heard it yet, go back and listen. Adam told us, when we told Adam that you were going to be on the show, the first thing he said, he goes, please just do me a favor and ask her about the Disney Wrestling Club.
Oh, man.
So what's that about?
Oh, God, it's been so long. It was really just, I think it was Disney movies, like in terms of watching. Honestly, it's been so long, I can't remember. I remember that joke, though. Darn. It's been such a long time.
Yeah, that was probably at least 2 years ago.
Yeah, and when you're in wrestler years, 2 years is a long time. God, I think it had to do with movies. I'm pretty sure it was like movie related.
Most likely. Knowing Adam, he ran another show on the same network called Ropes to Reels that just talked about wrestling related movies. So he would be the guy to bring up movies on your podcast.
Yeah, and like we actually, a group of us, Brendo and Gabriel Flares and Shane Saber, and like a couple people would come every now and then, but we would go to the movies weekly. And so we started at that time, so I'm assuming it's movies.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it's from movies. Yeah.
Judging by the name, I'm going to assume you're a big fan of the Disney movies then?
Oh, yeah.
So what's your favorite Disney movie?
Dumbo, the old one.
Dumbo?
The new one,
Nice.
yes.
See, that's what we call Mike on our show, too. Getting ready to wrap up here. Mike, do you have anything else that you want to ask?
No, man. Yeah, well, you know what? Let's go all the way back to the beginning because it's a very cliche question, but it has to be asked. Considering you knew at 13 that you wanted to do this, who made you want to do this? Who are you sitting? You're sitting in your living room watching the TV. Who's on the TV making you say, I need to do this?
I'm trying to think. Who were my favorites at the time? The Undertaker was my favorite. Mickey James.
Yeah.
Going back even further, Eddie Guerrero, Molly Holly, Trish, Edge, Christian. Definitely seeing Canadians also made me want to do wrestling. It's like, oh, okay, like it's possible. It's not just the Americans.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess,
especially growing up in this area, you know, growing up in Ontario or even in Toronto area, when you see somebody from Orangeville be able to be on the screen, somebody from Toronto, it makes it look like, wow, not only do I want to do this, maybe I could do this.
My mind was blown when I found out both him and Christian were from Orangeville.
Yeah.
I was like, there's no, like, Toronto maybe, but Orangeville? Like,
I was the same way. Like, we're a couple guys from Newmarket, and I'm like, wait a minute, that's like 25 minutes down the road. Like,
yeah, like, it's not far. It's possible.
So the final question then, I know that things are a little bit different right now in the world of wrestling, but what are the goals going forward for you? I won't say in 2021 because we don't know what it could be if you're even going to be able to get in the ring at all. But what are the long-term goals now for you now that you've got 10 years under your belt?
Long-term goals, I was really on track to wrestle a lot in 2020. So I want to get back to that. I had so many bookings. I had so many bookings. And I really want to get them all back. And I want to just keep going. I want wrestling to be my career, even if it's for a short time. I want to say that this is something I did for a living. It's not just something I did, from like Thursday to Sunday or, like a part-time job. This wrestling I want as a job, I guess, would be like my number one career goal. And that doesn't even mean like being signed. That could just be on my own. We've seen it's possible with the Young Bucks. They kind of proved that you can be an independent wrestler and successful.
100%, yeah.
Yeah, so like if that could happen for me, that'd be great. A company, also great. Travel with wrestling too. Like I'd love to go to Japan and Mexico. So that would be cool. The UK as well. And yeah, I guess those are my goals.
Well, I think I can speak on behalf of Mike when any major promotion, any promotion in general, will be lucky to have you. You seem like a great person. We appreciate you doing the time for us. And from an in-ring standpoint, I don't think there's a lot of people that can hold a candle to you right now.
You flatter me too much, I swear.
Before we let you
that is
go,
the number one reason we wanted you on this show, because I told Tyler months ago, I said we got to reach out to her, because when I go to indie shows, my favorite thing is when somebody, it doesn't matter how good they are in the ring, it's how they talk to you outside of the ring. I was at a show called, it was the very first return show for the union, Never Say Never.
Yes.
They
Yeah.
take them on. And I don't know if you worked that show, but you were there.
No, I was there. I was there to watch.
Right. And I remember, I'm like, you weren't even working, but you were so nice. You were talking to the fans, including myself. So it's the same thing with Jody and Josh Alexander, and RJ came up, and Brandon came and shook my hand. You know, it was such an amazing environment. And right there, I said, okay, I want all these people on my show one day. Those are the people that you need to talk to. And when Tyler and I started this show, you were at the top of the list, saying, because I said she's one of the nicest people I've ever seen. It doesn't matter how good she is in the ring. It's a bonus that she's one of the best female wrestlers in Ontario right now. But honestly, I can honestly say you leave a mark everywhere you go with your fans.
With like my favorite part of calling them my friends is that they're such great people.
Yeah.
And it's so nice because a lot of wrestlers are jaded. Especially older wrestlers, like they just get really jaded. They've been around for a while, didn't get to do what they wanted to do. Some guys that have been around for maybe not as long, they just they feel like they should be there already. And a lot of people say it's lonely at the top. It's only lonely if you don't have friends.
Yeah.
And if you choose to not have those friends, and I'm so thankful that all of my friends in wrestling are such good people.
No, we appreciate it too. Do you want to plug anything social media wise where the fans can keep tabs on you, keep updated what's going on? Maybe something that they can buy a shirt or an autograph from you.
Sure. So my Twitter is @it's Alexia Nicole. My Instagram is @Alexia Nicole. I don't remember if I changed that to match my Twitter or not. Just search my name. You should find me. I do have a Big Cartel website. It's alexianicole.bigcartel.com. Don't quote me on that. Just, again, search it. I also have a Pro Wrestling Tees store, which is prowrestlingtees.com. I think it's /bubblegum, where I have pretty much every shirt design ever on there and every size. I do have limited shirts and sizes on my Big Cartel, but I also have 8x10s on there if you're looking for an 8x10.
Perfect. Well, again, we want to thank you so much for taking some time out of your day and chatting with us, and best of luck to you in the future.
Thank you, guys. You too.